and welcome to Media MD, your fortnightly Doof Network dose of media that you have somehow missed. I'm Reuben Morehouse.
I'm Elliot Diebold.
And we are back to talk about Fantasy High. So we touched on it a bit in the prescription, as we always do.
Yes.
It's D&D video content. Elliot, why don't you take us through the plot?
Yeah. So I'll start the plot summary here by just quickly mentioning, so Fantasy High is actually like season 1 of Dimension 20, which is the sort of college humor dropout, whatever the video service thing's called. It's like their live roleplay show. So it's currently in season 5, so this is just season 1. And so season 5 is currently going. I think season 4 actually featured the Fall McElroy boys, which is interesting.
Yes, it did. I haven't seen that. I've only seen Fantasy High, but I'm sure I will love the others as well.
We'll get there. Anyway, so yes, back to the actual plot summary of Fantasy High, season 1. So it's D&D. So you've got your elves and your orcs and your tieflings, which is totally something I knew about before this.
You've played D&D. You should know what a tiefling is.
Well, I played one D&D session with you like 6 years ago.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure tieflings were in there. Right?
I don't remember the one shot from 6 years ago.
Well, that's not my fault.
But yes. So anyway, this is that, but it's set in like a modern American high school type deal. I think explicitly something Brennan mentions in one of it's probably the first episode, is that this is like, what if John Hughes did D&D, which I thought was a very fun premise.
We say it's a modern American high school, but really what it is an American high school movie, right?
Yeah,
it revels in the tropes that it plays with.
Yeah, I mean, like the first episode is like, they say, oh, we're inspired by John Hughes does D&D. The first episode is pretty much just the Breakfast Club.
Yes, they meet in detention and then become best friends. Like, yeah, it totally is.
And so, I guess to sort of jump into it all, so Brennan Lee Mulligan, who we mentioned before, is the DM. Mm-hmm. And we'll focus in on him in a bit, but to cover the plot summary, we have 6 characters who have all just started at Eggfort Adventuring Academy, which is a school about adventuring. I mean, I'll quickly go through the first 6 characters, but honestly, this is basically just me recounting what happens in the first 45 minutes of the first episode.
The first 45 minutes is basically each character gets their own like 5 to 10 minute scene establishing them, and then they meet, and that's basically it. And look, no shade, Elliot, but I don't think we're going to be able to do as good of a job summing up the characters as that episode does. So just go watch it. Like, it's a great show.
Yeah, like I think that's the thing. These little opening bits are actually masterful writing / playing.
They're genuinely so good.
Like, you can tell, I think, that part of the session zeros that happened, off screen, so to speak, were probably them readying these little bits, because they're like, Brennan and each person comes into such a clear idea of what they're going to be doing in this first 5 to 10 minutes. And I think the other fun part of it is clearly none of the other 5 players have any fucking idea what's happening, so they're all experiencing it with you. And I think that's part of the fun of these, like, live action role playing things, is watching the other players, or it's kind of like you're getting to watch semi-scripted content and also experience it with other people. Like, half the people in the show are experiencing it alongside you, and that was really highlighted to me in these first intro parts.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you that they did some extensive prep work. The one piece of evidence that goes against that, though, is that the rest of the series is also really, really good, and they couldn't have prepped every single episode. So clearly they're just, to some extent, they're just that good at playing these characters.
Yeah, for sure. I'll get into that in a bit. So yeah, okay. So just to finish the sort of plot summary, I won't. Should we go through who the 6 are, just in case?
Let's go through the 6. I think it's worth it.
Yeah,
and it'll help us dive into them later.
So I'm going to go clockwise, starting from the left, which is something that will only make sense if you've already seen it, so you don't need this. I don't know why I said that. So the first character is Fig. This is all just their like short names. They've got like long Dungeons and Dragony bullshit names. Yeah. Fig is a tiefling, so she's a half orc and basically half demon, and she's just found out that she's half demon. So they thought she was an elf, and then it turns out her mum had cheated, and so she's half demon. So she's going through this like rebellious punk phase and is obsessed with finding out which demon is her dad.
Yes.
So that's sort of very fun because she plays right in, like, all of these sort of play into a high school trope from the American high school movies that we were talking about. So she is like, the teenager who's going through a massive punk rebellious phase. Like she's a bard, but she's like, it's because she wants to be rock and roll. Like she's not, the bards you see in The Witcher. She's like
exactly.
She's trying to be like she's playing into the whole like rock and roll punk trope.
Yeah,
in a very fun way.
Her instrument of choice is an electric guitar, right?
Yeah, exactly. Then we have Gorgug, who is this like half orc that's was raised by gnomes. Again, doesn't quite know who his father is. But he's this fun play on like he was raised by like gnomes are very peacenik in this world, and as a half orc he has like rage issues, so he's kind of this wimpy nerd who rages out and sort of turns into a beast, which is a very fun sort of play on some of the nerd cliches.
Yeah, they're all so good. I'm not going to just comment on this for every single one, but they're all just so good.
I actually went to label which one was my favorite, and it was just a straight up 6-way tie.
I just can't.
And I know people always say that sort of thing, but like I genuinely mean it. They're
all so good for such different reasons.
Maybe Kristen is my favorite, but that's if I'm really pushed. Anyway, so the next character we have is Adine, who's like this elf, and her family are very like uptight, type A, high achievers, but she's prone to panic attacks. So she's actually like kind of failed out of the private school she was meant to be going to, and is now going to like public school with the commoners. I mean, this is absolutely all helped by I forget the name of the woman who plays her, but she's got a British accent, and around all these other American accents.
Siobhan, I don't know her surname.
But like Siobhan's British accent just mixed in with all the American accents makes her kind of sound posh.
Yes, exactly. She just like clearly stands out anyway.
Yeah. Exactly, like so, it's very fun. Then Fabian Seacaster is the son of this like famous pirate who has kind of set up shop as a
Elliot. Privateer, please.
Sorry. And so he's basically set up shop now as like a legitimate businessman / just general rich person. And so like Fabian is this like boy who gets a lot of pressure to be like his father, and is just kind of like that mixture of spoilt and insecure in a very fun way.
Yep.
So the character who I think is probably my favorite, if I'm forced to pick one, is Kristen Appleby's. I don't remember like any of the other surnames except for Appleby's and Seacaster because they were so ridiculous. So Kristen Appleby's is like this. Her family is very religious for this corn god that's really big.
They're kind of Bible Belt style Americans, right? Like that's the vibe.
That's absolutely what they're going for.
Yes.
And Kristen is like, so she's like this sort of church camp kid, but like the D&D sort of fantasy spin on it is she was actually chosen by this god. So that relates.
She is a cleric of this god now. Yeah.
So it relates to in-game abilities and also adds this fun twist to her character stuff because it's like she has actually communicated with God, and that adds a fun dynamic to her being like a particularly special one of these church camp kids.
Yes.
Because she's just like straight up chosen. And then the last character is just called the Ball.
I mean, Riz Gorgak is his name, but
the Ball. You'll get that joke if you watch it. And he's basically like a goblin Veronica Mars. I don't really think I don't think I need to go into more than that.
He's the one who tries to keep the plot moving, I guess.
Well, so I'm not going to go through the plot summary of all the actual episodes, I don't think, because like it's a live action role playing thing. I think you just kind of got to experience it as it goes.
The loose plot is there have been strange things happening around the school, and they're trying to figure out what's going on, who's involved, and put a stop to it, basically.
Yes, their breakfast club meet up at the end of episode 1 gets them embroiled in this sort of conspiracy within the school that involves like, magical Dungeons and Dragons shit.
Yeah.
And I think that's all you really need to know. Like from there, it's just them doing weird things.
Yeah, I should say, we're not being dismissive of the plot. I'm actually surprised by how compelling I find this overall plot. Like, even though a lot of it is trope heavy, this game is satirical, and so it plays into this weird blend of John Hughes and like traditional D&D plot tropes, and it works them so beautifully.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I me skipping over it should not be read as me not thinking it's great. It's me thinking that the best way to experience it is through experiencing it.
We don't want to sully it, basically, by just saying it out loud, because you just need to experience it.
So, like, something I wanted to bring up now that we've just sort of gone over the characters is something that came into my head as I think I was about 4 or 5 episodes in, which is so much of the out of character banter was relating to what I felt like the characters would say. I wonder how much these fantasy high characters are just kind of, exaggerations of these 6 players.
Yeah.
Like, it reminds me of one time I was watching like a behind the scenes thing for Parks and Rec, and I think it was Amy Poehler was saying like part of the magic of Parks and Rec was basically every character was playing like an exaggerated caricature of themselves. Yeah. So like Ron Swanson is just like an exaggerated Nick Offerman. Totally. She's an exaggerated Leslie Knope, like sort of that. And I kind of got that vibe watching these 6 play this game. Is there were very true aspects of their real selves in each of their characters, and that allowed the characters to shine stronger.
I wonder whether that's true for all of them, because I've seen some of the other stuff that some of the College Humor stuff has put out, and for example, Kristen Appleby's and Gorgug, I don't think they're super like their characters, but then for Adine or for Fabian or Riz, they are. I don't know. Whether it's the fact that they're playing amplified versions of themselves or not, the fact just is they are so good at these characters. The characters are so consistent and so consistently interacting with the story in ways that both progress it but also take it in such interesting directions that it's like a masterclass of watching how to create good entertainment, how to act a fun character, how to play D&D, all of these things just rolled into one.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think Fabian was the one who first made me have this theory. Like, this is probably a silly thing to latch onto, but like Lou Wilson, who plays Fabian, I thought he was doing this very posh character voice, and then he started talking out of character, and I realized it's just a slightly exaggerated version of his real accent. And then Emily Axford, I think, is the woman who plays Fig. Yes. And it's like, even out of character, she's the one who's like trying to cause chaos.
Yeah, she's chaotic. Yeah, totally.
And so this is just what made me think of this idea of like, I think all of them have put a piece of their real selves into their characters. But yeah, I guess another thing I wanted to talk about, and you've already started to touch on this, like just how good the story and the comedy is. And so just to, we've obviously, we talked about the Adventure Zone in the prescription, and we've talked about it on the show. So the comparison has to sort of come up, I think, at some point.
Yes, I think it must. And we've already talked about the McElroys as well.
Yeah, fair. Like I think I've often bemoaned, both on this podcast and just outside of it, about like how the Adventure Zone kind of left the good funny days in early balance, and I didn't enjoy the second half of it that much. And I think watching this has clarified what I dislike about the rest of the Adventure Zone a bit more clearly now. I think like in the Adventure Zone, it's always felt to me like the comedy and the story are at odds. Like the way the McElroys structure their story, it's to hit very genuine emotional beats. Yes, that are in direct conflict with the comedy, and they set
not necessarily in conflict, but just the comedy never relates to them as much. Like, you'll have a scene that's quite funny of the characters doing something, and then it's okay, let's move it on, let's get to the next thing, which is the actual part of the story, or let's get focused again back to the story, which is it's kind of fine, but they don't work together, right?
No, exactly. And so that's why, I'm one of these people who's like, the first half of the balance arc was good because it's funny, and I hate when they did the story. And then you see other people who are like, oh, it just gets better in the second half. And it's because like you have to like one more than the other. I think because only one of them can really shine at a time. Yeah. Whereas this, and the reason that Fantasy High made that clear to me is because it excels at doing both simultaneously.
Yes.
To such an incredible degree.
Yeah, it's genuinely crazy how well the story that is being told adapts to the comedy beats that the players throw in to fuck with Brennan Lee Mulligan, right?
Yeah. Well, just sorry, yeah. So we've entered a weird situation here where Reuben wasn't super far into this when he recommended it, which is like fine. I've done that before as well.
Yeah.
I've ended up watching more of it than Reuben, though.
You binged it hardcore.
I somehow managed to overtake you. So I've got a reference here to a scene I don't know if you've seen yet, but you should be.
I think I'm right before the scene that I'm seeing this note. So maybe we shouldn't touch on it. So I've seen up to the end of the first half of this season.
It's a very generic, like, I'm not going to go into any details. I'll just say, like, so episode 8 ends with this demon dad sort of showing up. And the scene at the start of episode 9 where the 6 of them take him to an ice cream parlor, and this is the opening of episode 9. It's right where we're up to. It's fucking hilarious. Yeah, but also pushes the story forward in a very important way, and in a way that you just don't see in the Adventure Zone.
Yeah, I think I have a good example that is in episode 8. I think another example of this, which is. Something that happens throughout episode 7 and 8 is the kids try to offer jobs at the school to people that they meet. So they meet a werewolf who seems down in his luck, and one of them says, oh, some positions have just opened up at the school. You should apply there. And then a theme that's been running through Fig's life is who she previously thought was her biological father is not her biological father. And so she's got this very strained relationship with this man. And we get these beats of her trying to kind of rekindle this relationship and apologize a bit to him for being so shitty to him when it wasn't his fault that her mother cheated on him, right? And it's this very emotionally compelling thing that ties into this comedy beat of they've been offering jobs at the school, and so she talks to him to get a job at the school, and he tries, but it's already been taken by the werewolf, so he ends up being the new lunch lady. And it's this ridiculous chain of comedic events that also plays into this genuine character moment of Fig trying to repair her relationship with her adopted father, I guess to call him, that is genuinely stepfather, yes, which is genuinely emotionally compelling and like good emotional drama tied into this weird character comedy beat, and it toes this line so perfectly. It's bizarre how well it manages to do it. It really is incredible.
Yeah, like I don't know if I can get much more like analytical than that. Like I want to dive into it more, but I was too busy just watching it because I was having so much fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, the way, and like these are like 7 because you've got Brennan as well as the 6 players. This is 7 writers / performers for a comedy website. So it kind of makes sense that they'd have good practiced instincts for this stuff. But it is just amazing how well the story, as you said, manages to still touch on these emotional beats while being just funny as shit. Like the idea that, like the whole thing about how now Fig's down on his like dad's going to be like the lunch lad, and they're all like, "Oh, lunch lad, I don't know about that." And it's like, I'm laughing at it while at the same time feeling good for what's happening between Fig and her dad. It's really well done. And the adaptation as well, like the fact that to a degree this is all being improved, but I think what this story and what Brennan Lee Mulligan in particular is really good at doing is setting himself up with like chips that are all going to fall in ways that he can work with.
Yes, I mean we should touch on the fact that something that I actually really respect about this show is they will just fucking go for it with the dice rolls. Like a dice roll will genuinely determine the outcome of some really important story-based shit, right? And they just fucking flow with it. And it's so great. Like it's it's so incredible knowing if someone rolls a 1 here, a character could die, and that's something that they are fully prepared to deal with. Like, that's something that will just happen in the story, and it makes it so suspenseful.
Well, so, like, there's that one roll, I think it's in episode 6, where Adine basically rolls as to whether or not she becomes a werewolf.
Yes.
And that roll goes one way that I'm not even going to say here because you should just go and watch it.
Yes.
But it's kind of like, if you think about how the story would be different if that roll had gone the other way, like, it's kind of insane. But again, I think what they've done is like, they've crafted a world, and Brennan just has such a good idea of what's going on. I totally trust in their ability to, no matter how the dice go, Brennan's going to have an idea of kind of like multiple options of where he can slot this thing.
Yeah, I've obviously DM'd before, and you know, I've had these situations where I've planned things out in my head, and I have to kind of let players have agency to explore something, but I have to kind of make sure it goes along the right path. And honestly, this is such an instructional thing of like, there's so much interest to be found in letting dice rolls be what they are, be random, because I know I've fudged a roll for my character to not become a werewolf before that exact situation. But looking at this, I know I have so much faith that like it will be so intense if she becomes a werewolf, but I also just trust it will be an incredibly compelling experience, right?
Yeah. Well, it reminds me of you know, there's that often talked about thing with writing where you have sort of two types of writers. You have I forget the exact thing. I shouldn't have brought it up. But it's like, you know, you have the ones who plan everything out and then they sort of write out the story after they have a plan of the whole thing. Whereas then you have authors who are more gardeners, and like, you know, George R. R. Martin and Wildbow have both described themselves as being this kind of author where they have a vague end goal in mind. You know, some specific beats they want to hit at the end, but all they really do is plant a bunch of seeds and write the story as it comes to them.
Yeah, and let the characters behave in a way that is realistic, compelling, and find their way to the end.
And they just try to steer things towards that end point, but they kind of let the story and the characters grow naturally. And I feel like that's the difference you see from Brennan Lee Mulligan here. I think that's what he's doing a very good job of, is he's just planting seeds everywhere in ways that he can shape the plants depending on how the dice rolls and what the characters do. Like these two positions in the high school, they go to two specific characters. I reckon there are probably 4 or 5 other characters he easily could have been like, yep, that's that person.
Totally. And it would play into the plot in a very active way.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's set up scenarios where no matter which way the dice roll, he's somewhat prepared for it.
Yeah, I want to talk about one specific part, which is at the end of episode 2. And I'm just going to take a brief moment to plead with you as the audience. If you haven't watched this show, please, the moment I'm about to describe is so much better if you watch it. So just please go and do that. Just for the first 2 episodes, not even that much.
Stop it right now. Yeah,
I mean, you know what I'm about to talk about, right, Elliot? And the fact that it is a surprise makes it so powerful.
Yeah, I was laughing for so long after this went down, and it's not even a funny moment.
No,
it's just
so I'm going to describe it now, but I shouldn't, but I'm going to anyway. And please go away if you haven't watched it. Just go away. Basically, in the second episode, they go through combat, and the party is very overconfident, and 2 of the party members die in the second episode. And I had the same reaction. A friend recommended this to me, and during episode 2, I was frantically messaging them like, what the hell is going on? And you did the exact same thing to me.
I did, yeah.
These characters genuinely die. And what happens is, I think the best example of how Brennan Lee Mulligan is an expert at DMing and making stakes feel real while still guiding the players through the story. He basically has the principal of the school come in and shoot himself in the head as a sacrifice to bring these characters. Shoot himself and another character in the head. As a sacrifice to bring these characters back to life. And it's like a masterclass in how to make stakes real while making it so that your characters don't just die and that's the end of their story.
Yeah, because getting those characters back was absolutely not free. Eggfort
No.
and this other and Mr. Gibbons dying is just
yes, it's Eggfort, the founder of the school, and you just feel the impact of it, and you know, like, that they have just lost a valuable resource in this game. Possibly the only person that they knew was not evil in this school has just died, and it's insane. And then we have these, like, afterlife visions, and they experience these powerful consequences because they've just gone to the afterlife as characters and come back. Like, it's genuinely
I can't believe that was
incredible.
Orc Heaven. I'm sorry to just start quoting jokes, but the idea that was Orc Heaven was such a great.
Well, was it Orc Heaven or just like the Orc Afterlife? I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway,
but
sorry.
yeah, it's no, but it's so, like, it's so perfectly sums up why I think this show works so well, is because the characters and the DM are so good at adapting the story and making it feel both incredibly fantastical and comedic, but also incredibly grounded and realistic. And they just, I don't know how they pull off these tones so well, but they just do, and it's incredible.
Yeah. I almost feel like it is just a focus on a character, you know? Like, I don't think Brennan or a player comes in thinking, okay, I want Fabian to do X, like, just to pick a random example. Like, I don't think Lou and Brennan sit down and they go, we want Fabian to do X. They built an impression of Fabian. Lou probably has ideas for drama and comedy beats around that, but, like, they'd probably be quite general. And again, it's just slotting these ideas they have into slots that they think will be good.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, we have sort of been talking about it, but, like, someone who deserves particular attention is just, like, Brendan Lee Mulligan is so good at what he's doing.
He's putting
like,
in some serious work here. Like, God damn, he is great.
We've already talked about how great he's doing with the plot and the characters and managing it all. Like, just his sort of raw DM skills in guiding the plot and whatever are top notch.
Yes, it's hardcore stuff.
But, like, his voices. Like, I was just doing another episode of the Worm audiobook, or the Ward audiobook, and, like, I'm so bad at doing the voices for characters. And so just, like, simultaneously struggling with that myself, and then watching Brendan Lee Mulligan just nail it, I was just like, well, you can tell why he's in this business. Like, all of his stuff was so good. And then, like, they often cut to him, like, because this is a visual thing, and he'll be, like, wiping his brow, and it's like, it's not just because, like, of the stage lights or he's unfit or anything. The dude is working. He's, like, full body doing stuff the entire show, and these are hour-and-a-half episodes, and it's just like, he's just putting all of himself into it, and it really comes across, and, like, he deserves so many props for that.
Yeah, it really is exceptionally well made. It's we've been talking about the characters and stuff, but there's also, it's a visual medium. Like, they have models and figurines and stuff. I don't know where they get this, but the way that he's able to set these scenes is so captivating. Like, it's genuinely. I mean, I feel like I'm just saying this so much, but it just baffles me how great it is.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, this is the standard that has now been set for our upcoming series in terms of GMing.
I don't think anyone can live up to Brendan Lee Mulligan, honestly.
No, absolutely. Like, he's far and away the best I've seen. But yeah, so to touch on what you just talked about, that was something that blew me away as well. The production value for this was so much higher than I expected, even though you mentioned it in the prescription.
Yeah. No, I mean, me too. Like,
the miniatures and the sets are so cool.
Yeah.
And like,
so detailed.
And you even get to see the players react to them, which is fun as well. There's a particular instance I don't think you've seen yet, which is, like, watching Brennan do something to the miniatures, and I was like, holy shit. And then you hear, like, all 6 players be like, holy shit.
Yeah.
It's like, it's great. The dome they're in as well. So they're in this, like, kind of inside of a dome, the play space, and it's all well lit, and they can change the colors, and so, as well as, like, background music that's clearly been added in post.
Yes, and sound effects and stuff as well.
Yeah, like, there's a bunch of sound stuff, which sometimes was maybe a bit too much for me, but, like, overall it improved the ambience. But then the lighting of the dome is clearly something Brennan is controlling in his little dungeon master thing, and, like, it adds so much that the room will change color when things get serious. And then, like, so the miniature table sets, I'm not going to describe it because you should just go watch it. But there's sort of a main set, and then The show follows this kind of format of every second episode being combat.
Yeah.
And each combat episode comes with a whole new, like setting for miniatures.
Yeah, like a play space with miniatures and
yeah, exactly.
I mean, some miniatures that are not very miniature as well for like giant golems and shit.
Yeah, so like the built-in table they have, which is already this impressive model, has a slot where each combat episode they slot in like the fight area, and it's this really detailed model, and it's just so cool.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, yeah.
Originally, like when I sat down to watch this, I'm not gonna lie, I went to treat it like a podcast. I put it on YouTube, put it at 1.5 speed, and then wasn't watching and was doing other things.
Yeah.
And by the end of the second episode, I was basically just watching it. I'm gonna be honest, I kept it on 1.5 speed. They're very long episodes.
That's how you binge through it so quickly.
Yeah, that definitely was a factor. But like I was still, I found myself just having to watch it because the miniatures, you know, there's a level of like the interaction between the players that you get when they're visually like.
Yeah, I mean the facial expressions and everything of the characters are they are living their characters, right?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and they're often like interacting with each other physically, and like, you know, it's the stuff you wouldn't do if you're doing an audio version. Yeah. But then on the other side, you can't do if you're doing an audio version.
You have to do very differently.
Yeah, exactly. So like I found myself initially, I was like, oh, I just won't watch it. Like I'm probably not missing anything, and then just naturally found myself constantly wanting to look over, and then by the end, I was just watching.
Yeah. I mean. Yeah, look, I'm not going to say it again. It's great. It's just great.
Yeah, I suppose if we want to dabble in criticisms, and this is a criticism I also labeled at the Adventure Zone. There's maybe too much combat for me. I get that the combat part of D&D is fun to play. I haven't done too much of it myself, but I can see the appeal as you're playing. As a viewer, I don't find it as interesting. Like as we touched on, there's this combat on, combat off sort of formula to the series. I was always so much more interested in just the pure roleplay ones without combat. Not that the combat ones are empty. First of all, they still have a lot of roleplay in them. Like there's still great moments. I almost feel like, you know, with all these 1.5 hour long episodes, like that's about the average. I think you could cut the combat ones down to 45 minutes, and I think I would prefer it. Like in fact, I'd say it was probably the second half of the combat episodes that I found myself not paying as much attention. I think if you did the 1.5 hour long roleplay ones and then cut it to 45-minute combats, and I get that probably doesn't make sense from a production standpoint because you're putting so much effort into the miniatures. But the combat for me maybe was more than I'd like. I'm
unsure whether I agree with you or not. I have always found combat in D&D to be so boring. Like genuinely, I think it's incredibly boring. But the fact that each combat in this is so different in terms of the space, there's always like 2 or 3 weird beats or gimmicks in each combat encounter, and like they all have genuinely very, very compelling character beats. Like the characters aren't just fucking min-maxing their combat like most people would do in a combat encounter. They're playing their characters, and it just is so, again, I just love it. I just love every part of this show.
No, I agree. That's something that all the players have done a very good job of, is building the abilities like into their characters. So it totally makes sense that their character can do X, and in fact it does do X.
Yeah.
Kristen is this weird, she's constantly channeling Helio, the god of corn, but it's like she's chosen by him, and so like all the interactions around that make sense. And then there's some fun stuff later on as she starts to question that religion,
question her faith, yes,
and how that interacts with all those powers. It's great. Like I guess, as well, the thing you mentioned, each combat has this really unique spin on it, and I won't just like list them all off, but it's kind of like I think that's why, again, those first 45 minutes still captivated me, because each fight brought something completely new to all the interactions in a very fun way.
It's never just, oh, you've come across a group of goblins. It's
exactly.
This is a very specific scene that Brennan has put a lot of effort into. The dynamics of the characters in this scene, the fucking jokes of like, well, this is why you're fighting these people and they're tap dancing, fucking breakdancing vampires or whatever, right?
Exactly.
And there's always like gimmicks and twists and turns in the combat and things that are gonna like go crazy. Like,
like there's at least one major gimmick I can think of for each of the fights I've seen, and that's without even really thinking. So like, and I think that's what keeps it fresh. Again, I wouldn't be averse to finding out that the later seasons half to the length of the combat episodes, but wait, just, you know, again, this is my minor complaint. They're still far from bad. I wouldn't shorten them by that much because, again, like, some of the best comedy moments come out of the randomness of these fights.
Yes.
Like the skate park. Well, skate park one in particular has a few instances that are just jumping to my mind of bits that just had me cackling as someone tried some stupid stunt on the field.
And it works, which is incredible, or it doesn't work, and that's equally incredible. There's one stunt where Fig, I've got to talk about this one, where there's a driving, like one of the first or the second combats it's like takes place while they're driving, and Fig gets this idea. She's driving the car. She gets this idea to do this crazy maneuver, and she tries it and fucks it up so bad. And almost everyone like immediately takes a shit ton of damage, and it completely changes the dynamic of the fight midway through because she's just fucked up this combat, like this driving maneuver, and just like wiped out her car completely.
That's when all the adaptation stuff we talked about is really coming to the fore. Like, their ability to make it fun when people fail as much as when they succeed is a huge, huge testament to how great they are at improving.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I could talk about this show forever, Elliot, I think, genuinely.
I think I've run out of major points.
We haven't even talked about, like, we haven't gone very deep on the characters. There's so much to talk about in how well each of the characters, and they're like their own arcs and how incredibly interesting they are. But I think we should just stop here and let people experience it themselves.
Yeah, I was about to say, I've run out of all my big picture stuff I need to talk about. And at this point, all I want to do is just get into the specific characters, plot points and everything. And it's like, but you should just go and experience those for yourself.
Enjoy them. Yeah, totally.
You don't need to listen to us talk about it. You can just go watch it because it's good stuff.
Yeah, and you should. Elliot, why don't you give us your number for this one?
I'm gonna have to give it a 9. Like, I know that's very high, but this is.
It deserves it, honestly.
Yeah. I've gotten so into this, and I'm probably gonna finish it within a week.
Yeah, definitely. College humor has always been something that's sat in my mind as like, oh yeah, they're just like some like BuzzFeed style, whatever, they just do stuff.
Yeah, I've never really gotten into college humor stuff. Like, I'll occasionally, one of their videos will go viral or something and I'll watch it and I'll be like,
it's fine. Like, it's got some funny bits in it. But this has escalated to such a high degree, the perception I have of these people, because they are so talented.
I've never been this enraptured by any college humor content.
Yeah, it's just like a perfect storm of things that make this show so good.
Yeah, I agree. And I guess on that note, we should move on to what's coming up next.
Yes, this is a prescription that we have got from a listener, Noah. And I guess here it comes now.
Hello, my name is Noah, and I would like to prescribe a story known as Alice Isn't Dead. Now, Alice Isn't Dead is this story about this woman who's trying to find her wife 6 months after her funeral because she saw her in the background of a news report. Along the way, she encounters different horrifying creatures and beings. The horror podcast gave me similar vibes to the Magnus Archives, both in production quality and just in story, because they're both great, which is why I'm prescribing it. The podcast itself is from the perspective of an audio diary that the woman, is keeping for Alice. Aside from that, you can find the series on YouTube or on Audible, both under Alice Isn't Dead. As a prescription, I would like to prescribe you the first season. It's 10 parts, and each episode is 20 minutes. I hope you end up picking this, and I'm sorry for all the stuttering.
All right. So yeah, we'll be talking about Alice Isn't Dead. Thanks, Noah. What do you think about this one, Elliot? I mean, the prescription mentioned the Magnus Archives, which is something else that we both have thoroughly enjoyed.
Yeah, I mean that's a good way to get our attention, I think. Like,
that's just a little seed of definitely want to check this out.
Yeah, basically saying, this is a horror podcast, and you're talking about the Magnus Archives made me think of it. So it's to me, oh, good, more of that. Like, yes, please. I still haven't caught up to the Magnus Archives, but
I'm almost finished season 4, and season 5 for Magnus has just started airing, so I'm almost there.
Oh yeah, you're right on the line.
Right on the cusp. But enough about Magnus Archives. All right, let's talk about Alice Isn't Dead.
I'm interested in the concept of this. Like, I don't think I completely grasp it. So like I don't quite get how this story of someone trying to find their dead wife mixes into the horror. But I guess I'll see. But definitely the elevator pitch and the comparison to Magnus Archives has me interested.
Yeah. I actually think I've heard some of this. I'm not sure. I feel like I've heard the first episode or two, and I can't really remember where or when. But I feel like I'm having flashbacks of this. And so I'm excited to dive back into it and see if it's the thing that I think it is. But just, I do remember quite enjoying it. So I think it'll play quite nicely. I don't want to talk about it too much because I think it's the kind of thing where you just want to experience it yourself.
Yeah. So, and I mean, on that note, I guess that's what we should go and do.
Let's go and experience it ourselves. So yeah, we're going to be talking about, as Noah said, probably the first season, if not the first 2 seasons, depending on how much we get into it, I guess. Yeah. And we'll be back to talk about that in a fortnight. So thanks, Noah, for prescribing that. If you want to leave us your thoughts on Fantasy High, which you should please go and watch, so good. Or on Alice Isn't Dead, the best way to do that is by emailing us at mediamdpodcast@gmail.com. Yes,
you can also tweet at us at mediamdpodcast, and you can find us on the Doof Discord. Yeah. That's a perk of Patreoning Doof at patreon.com/Doof Media. Yeah. We're there a lot, and it's a great way to sort of get in contact with us and the wider community of Doof, which is just, it's a great place to hang out.
Yeah, lots of great media discussion, all kinds of random discussions going on in there.
I'd say the full spectrum from like very like analytical, serious discussion to just stupid memeing. We've kind of got like the full spectrum of good conversation.
Yep, Animal Crossing memes. There's a channel for that. All kinds of stuff. Actually, speaking of media discussion, we are about to start up a new show as well, where we do a monthly game club. Have we talked about this on Media MD yet?
I don't think so. I don't think we have. So that's actually coming up in just over a fortnight. It'll be the day after the next episode of Media MD drops. We will be talking about Team Cherry's Hollow Knight as our first game.
And kind of Metroidvanias in general a little bit. Yeah. If you want to find out more details on that, you can go to doofmedia.com, which is the place you can find all the things we just talked about, our email, the Doof Patreon, all the other Doof shows, as well as all the previous clues for the Media MD ARG. You can help us figure out just who is Dr. MD and who is his father. Elliot, why don't you tell the listeners this fortnight's clue?
Quest.
And we'll see you next fortnight.